Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers Inspiration. I'm your host, Harriet Cole. As always, honored to be here with you today and excited to connect. We started this broadcast at a moment of disconnection for the world. We started it in April of 2020, which was the month after the pandemic began and everybody had to go home and be hunkered down wherever they lived. Prior to that, we didn't use broadcasts like this. People, just your average person wasn't communicating using video for sure. And not so, we talked on the phone, but the way that people communicate today, it really blossomed out of this awful moment when we were disconnected from each other, which is why my mother says something good comes out of everything. But you have to look and notice and have your eyes open so that you can see and value the good things that come out of really tragic situations. But I started this broadcast because I felt disconnected and wanted to create space for people to come together and share love and share joy and share hope and know that we are not alone. To understand that, of course, we have to take care of ourselves, but also there's value in community. And what I have seen over these now 5 years is that being in community with people is precious. It helps you to know that you are not alone, that there's somebody out there in the world who is smiling your way. And sometimes we really need that. At the same time, so my message today is sort of understanding that, but understanding something much more fundamental, which is what is our relationship with ourselves? What is your relationship with you? Do you think you have one? Do you pay attention to yourself? Do you tend to yourself? And I'm calling this broadcast Love Yourself very intentionally because I think that too often we look to others to provide comfort for us. We look to others for validation in this life that we're living right now where social media, and even before social media, just advertising in general, would tell people you have to look like this, you have to do this, you have to wear this in order to be valuable, in order to be beautiful, in order to be loved. Social media, one of the downsides is that there's so much competition that seems to occur because if you're not living up to this expectation, then do you have value? Now, of course, there are lots of good things about social media. I'm not suggesting that it's bad, but I am suggesting that we are living in a time when it's so easy to look outside for validation, to feel that if we don't measure up to whatever standard exists for whatever topic you want to choose, then we aren't good enough. And I think that's dangerous. And so I want us to think a little differently and consider if we tend to ourselves first, what happens? And so before I dive deeply into this, I want to say, because I've been having fun with you guys asking, where are you? Because people I'm discovering are tuning in from all over the world, which I think is so cool. So if you'd like to write in the chat box and tell us where you are right now? Where are you tuning in from? That would be so nice to see and hear. And also, I want to, and I see, Pamela, who is a regular uh, part of our community for Dreamleapers Inspiration, has signed in, and I'll get to her in a second. But I was about to say to you, you can join this conversation by going on my website, harrietcole.com/inspiration. And so tell me where you are, put it in the chat box. Tell me, do you feel like you love yourself? Do you feel like you take the time to tend to you? Do you find yourself reaching out to others, hoping that if you reach out to them and get them to do something for you, that you'll feel better about yourself? And does that work? I know I'm guilty of doing this. Oh, I need support. I need something in tender moments. And I shouldn't even say guilty of it, because it's human nature to want and need connection with others. But I have found that if you really are relying on that, you may come up short. You may not get what you need, and you may then decide that you're mad at someone else for not providing for you what you really need to find within yourself. So if you love yourself first, if you tend to yourself first, if you honor yourself first, if you take care of yourself, then whatever support you may get from others is that nice boost, a nice bonus, but it is not as essential, because you're making the effort to take care of you. So the quote that I have today, I was looking around for quotes, and then I said, I don't need to look for a quote. One of my closest friends, the sign off on his um, voicemail is "Give yourself a hug." This is Rashid Silvera. We've been friends since I was in college, and that was a long time ago. But Rashid says, "Give yourself a hug." Give yourself that gift. Give yourself that understanding that you are valuable, that you are worth it, that you deserve tenderness, that in moments when things can be tough, that you can look to yourself for solace first. It does not mean that you shouldn't also reach out to people that you love to get additional support if you need it, or even if it's not people you love, other means if you need support. But if you start with you, if you start with the self-embrace, love you first, tend to you first, take care of yourself first, treasure yourself first. If you do that, what happens? Great things happen when you take care of you. When you want other people, when you want to give the responsibility to other people to tend to you, often you get your feelings hurt. Often you do. Um, for me, and I've been telling you, so I'll continue as I'm on this journey. My mother, who's 95, is in a very tender time of her life right now. And so my sisters and I are doing all that we can to love up on her and support her, and be with her as she is in this tender moment. And I was feeling very fragile emotionally the other day as I was about to head to Baltimore to see her. And I said to a friend, I need a hug. And it the interpretation of that didn't somehow translate well. And what ended up happening was sort of this weird dynamic. And what I realized is give yourself a hug, Harriet. This is that moment when when you're in a tender moment, turn to you and faith first. Don't put it on somebody else to buoy you up. Don't do that first. Be able to go within and breathe and meditate, and as my mother says, count your blessings and be really clear about where your strength is. And from, even if it's tender, from that tender space, you can find strength, and then everything is slightly easier. But when we want other people to create happiness for us, we often fall short. And having just had that experience, I said, maybe I'll talk to our community about this. Even in the most tender of moments, you may be unpleasantly surprised to see that when you feel that you need something, whoever you're reaching out to may not have the capacity to offer that. So reach within first. Tend to yourself first. Love yourself first. And then it's easier to move forward. So I see we have friends in our behind the scenes, and I'm going to invite Virginia to come on first, and then we'll go to Pamela. Hi, Virginia. I can't hear you. Can you put your sound on?
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on to
Yes,
be part of this conversation. What are your thoughts around this notion of loving yourself first?
I think I need that. As I said, I'm caregiving for my mom, and it's not an easy task. We both struggle, but I think I feel alone sometimes
Mm.
because we don't get that many visitors, and but I see what you're saying. It's so important that we care for ourselves because it
Es
makes it easier.
Especially as a caregiver. They
Yeah.
say that often caregivers neglect themselves and end up getting sick too. So you
Yes.
really have to tend to yourself. And, I have found rituals are helpful.
Oh.
If doing that deep breathing that just allows you to fill your being
Mhm.
with light and literally with oxygen, because when we are feeling tender, we often breathe shallowly. It's so
Mhm.
interesting to see what the things that we do. And I practice meditation, just a daily meditation of just acknowledging the gratitude that you have. You have your mother, just like I have my mother. There are
Mhm.
many people who don't.
Right.
These tender ages, when they get up in age, it's like the people in the hospital where my mother is right now said, and they care for a lot of older people. They said, well, what we see is that the cycle of life, they get to be like babies again. And and you know, taking care of a baby is a whole bunch of work, right?
Yes, yes.
But having rituals where you take care of yourself, where you uh, just eat something that's healthy, soothe your spirit and your body. I think if you set them up as rituals, then you'll do them even if you're feeling tense, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And so you said you don't have that many visitors. Could you create a scenario where you had more people to come and be with you?
Yes, yes. I was thinking even the other day that I could have a tea. Maybe
Mm.
just invite a couple people over for tea. And also, my mom likes to play games like domino.
Mm.
She's 95, but
Same as mine, yeah.
she likes to play dominoes, so we could even have maybe a game day, something like that, to draw people
That's
in.
lovely, yeah, and that way, you just bring some lightness and joy. Yeah, my mom
Yeah.
plays bingo. They love bingo. My mother does not live with us. She lives in an assisted living place, and
Uh-huh.
but she loves it. They play bingo every day,
Okay. But
and
thank
it
you.
creates an opportunity for something very simple but joyful, and you're not thinking about whatever your ailments might be. You're just uh,
Yes.
enjoying the moment. So,
Yes.
well, I hope that you will give yourself a hug. Yes, yes. It's a nice
Thank
feeling.
you.
It's a nice feeling. Where are you? Where are you? What part of the
Massachusetts.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us and sharing what's going on in your world, and blessings to you and your mom.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care. And let's bring Pamela on. Hi,
Good
Pamela.
morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well, thanks. I regret that my camera
We have to
is.
figure out what's wrong with that camera.
I know, but um, more sooner than later. I wanted to just pause and say thank you because during my meditation this morning, 5:30, I like to um meditate and spend that time with God when the air, I believe, is unused, right?
Mm,
The air is never unused, but I feel like early in the morning, like between 3 and 5:30, the air is unused.
mm,
And it's so amazing that you would focus on self-care today. I too have served as caretaker for my mother who transitioned and some siblings who have transitioned.
mm.
But I was thinking about my faith because I'm a person of faith.
Yep.
What does God say about self care? And my meditation, I'm not going to preach, I promise.
That's all right. That's all right.
Um, so, my meditation this morning was Matthew 22:37 and 39. Jesus said, "Love the Lord your God with all your passion and prayer and intelligence. This is the most important, the first of on any list. But there is a second to set alongside. It is love others as you love yourself.
Hmm.
These two commands are pegs, everything in God's law." So I said, I've been giving to others what I haven't given to myself.
Yes.
And culturally, we are, I can't say we, I have had the experience of love being, you have a roof over your head.
Ah,
You have food on the table, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful
sure.
that, my grandparents raised me because my parents transitioned
Mm,
early on in life. But being able to say it is so profound because I can feel what I say. And the Bible says that the power of life and death lies in the tongue. So what I'm saying, it finds me. There's a place of belonging when I invest in the God in me. So I wanted to say thank you. How do I feel about self-care? I have this morning, after this morning meditation, I begin to I journal often.
mm,
And I was saying in my journal to myself, I am enough.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's such an important message that I don't care who you are and how successful you may be, we have moments where we don't think we're enough.
Mm,
And in those moments, it's so important to stop ourselves. Say, "Wait a minute, this is an unhealthy thought."
yes.
And because if you let it go, then it can grow, right?
Yes.
And so when you hear it, when you feel it, pause. And you I love that scripture that you shared, because even as the message today is love yourself,
Mm,
I'm sharing this message with community. Like, I really value this community so much the people who gather in the moment and the people who uh, gather on demand, because that's how our world is. But I hear people, Pamela, all over the place telling me, "Oh yeah, I tuned into your broadcast." I can't tell who's tuning in or not, and because we air it on lots of different places, it's a sprinkling of people here and people there, but the community of people who connect through inspiration are important to me.
Yes.
You all are important to me. It is important to me to know that we lock arms and spirits in this way. It is important to me to know that there are loving people who have my back just as I have your back. And it is important to love yourself first, but both are important. Community is
Yes.
super important.
Yes. Well, it's noteworthy to mention that during our prayer time at 5:30, there are a group of women throughout the diaspora
Mm.
and in the states that are praying for Harriet Cole and her mother and her
Oh,
sisters and your team,
thank you.
because you matter to us as well. And you
Thank
have, from afar, helped us become better. So thank you. And I'm looking to sign up for this one-on-one with you. So
Okay.
I guess just not a shameless plug. I'm trying, but I've had some difficulties. So if somebody can reach out to me, I'd appreciate it. And
So,
I'm gonna,
give us your email address and I'll have my assistant reach out to you.
may I put it in the chat or no?
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you. And let me thank you, Pamela, and thank you for always tuning in. My friend Rodney Reynolds is connected, and he has an idea to share for things that you can do. Uh, I'm assuming he wrote this when I was speaking to Virginia. American Legacy's Know Your History board game is something else you can do. And when you're knowing your history, especially with elders, it can be a lot of fun because they often know things that you don't. But this cross-generational thing. So Rodney created a magazine some years ago called American Legacy, which dives deeply into African American heritage. And I worked with him some years ago to create something called American Legacy Woman, which was looking at African American women and the contributions that we have made. And he now takes this American Legacy concept around the country, bringing history and culture to all kinds of different events. But the American Legacy Know Your History board game sounds like a great idea. Uh, and I've got some people. Oh, wow. Mila is tuning in from Greece. Hello, Mila. So nice to have you tuning in. See, this is the value of technology, that we can be connected across space in a blink. And so, this notion of loving yourself first and feeling the embrace of community, it's the two hands that make humanity what it is. Like, we do need each other. We do need the hug from others, but we need to understand that if you aren't tending to yourself, then it feels desperate when you're asking someone else to lighten your load with a hug. Somehow that happens, and that is not healthy. And so I want us to really take the time to take care of self first. What can you do for you? Whether you are like Virginia, who's taking care of her mother, or other people who are taking care of their children, people who are completely alone, taking care of no one, but also possibly feeling isolated, folks who are stressed out because they don't have whatever financial resources they need. And by the way, that is growing right now because of all the different things going on in our world. So many people have lost their jobs suddenly because of the changes in our government. Many, many, many people who work in the DEI space have lost contracts because of the shifts that have been occurring. And just the natural order of the world, things change. There's a lot of upheaval. When there is a lot of upheaval, it can be very challenging for people to have peace, which is why we have to call upon our inner reserves, practice the rituals that we have to invoke peace, to strengthen the inner muscles that include how we think, so that we don't go down a path that is unhealthy. Think about, what are you doing now for yourself that's healthy, and what are you doing that isn't healthy? Like, what are you eating? What are you drinking? What are you physically doing? One of the big challenges for many, many, many people who work using a computer is that we sit too much. I have a watch that tells me, get up, stand up, get up, come on, girl. It's cheering me on. Oh, you moved pretty well today. No, you got to get up and walk for about 20 minutes. And sometimes I'll look at it and say, walk for 20 minutes. I don't have time to do that. That's not the right answer. If my watch is having to remind me to get up and move, it means I better get up and move. What about you? What is happening for you in this regard? Are you noticing your patterns? And if you are feeling stressed, which many of us are, what are you doing to combat the stress? So, with this notion that my friend Rashid says, give yourself a hug, do that first. Like, you literally can do that. Give yourself a hug, love yourself, touch yourself gently. Be kind to yourself. What would feel kind? Would a warm bath feel kind? And do you ever do that? Do you take the time to do that? Would a cup of tea feel gentle to yourself? What kind of food can you nourish yourself with that will make you feel loved? Do you go to food that is unhealthy when you're feeling stressed? And if you do, pause and ask yourself, what could you put in your body that would be soothing to your spirit? What does your body deserve to have? What do you do with your skin? Do you moisturize your skin and take the time to lovingly apply whatever that moisturizer is? Those little things. See, we do that for those people who are caregivers. One of the nicest things that people do is to moisturize their loved one's skin. Do you do it for yourself? Can you pause and walk outside in the daylight? Can you just do it? Can you do it today? If there's sunshine in New York City, there's sunshine right now. Can you just put your being in the sun for a minute? Because even that is so good for your physical and spiritual self. What can you do for you that is kind? I just feel like, and let me see, some folks are writing. Yeah, well, Pamela, who we were just talking to, says connecting with nature is so refreshing. That is so true. That is so true. And I just want us to recognize that we have agency, we have power. Even if lots of other things are not going well, we can love ourselves. And by the way, when we are thinking of community and thinking of who we will reach out to be in community with those people, be positive. think about this is another one of my mother, Doris Cole's things, notice the bright lights in the room. Reach out to people whose light is bright. When you do that, rather than reaching out to someone who will be happy to complain with you, reach out to someone who might pray with you, who will say something uplifting, who will be loving and not critical. When you feel tender, you do not want to communicate with someone who is going to push back or just say something that might be negative. During tender times, you need tender voices. You know who those people are in your life. Do not make the mistake of calling upon someone who doesn't have the capacity to offer that to you, because you'll just end up getting your feelings hurt and feeling more tender, which is why you want to start with yourself first. But also just be aware who in your world can share in that hug. Not that you're making it their responsibility, but who can share in that hug. And I know, I just shared with you the other day, it was the wrong moment and the wrong person, and I got my feelings hurt. I got over it. But when you make the mistake of reaching out to someone who doesn't have the capacity or desire to share that hug with you in that moment, don't lash out. It's not worth it. Just take a breath, give yourself a hug, and move on. It's not easy to do. But during these moments, we also want to practice gratitude. Be grateful for all of the little things that make your life worth living. Be grateful for the people in your world who love you. Do your best to offer love every day to someone, starting with yourself. And be gentle with yourself. When you do that, life can be sweeter. And we need that sweetness now. We have to be tough in order to soldier through whatever's going on in our world, but we can be sweet with ourselves and with others too. And so I share that message with you. Love yourself. Give yourself a hug. Just welcome joy in every possible way that you can. Thank you for sharing your joy with me, with each other. Thank you to all of you who have connected all over the place, from Massachusetts, New York, Greece, and many other places. Thank you. And as you walk through this day and this week, remember to give yourself a hug. Until next time, have a great day and make it count. Namaste.